I'm Elsie, 67 years old, and until recently I'd been living in my Victorian home in San Francisco for 30 years. After retiring as a high school English teacher, I thought I'd spend my golden years surrounded by family who loved me. My daughter Amanda and her husband Richard visited often, but one phone call changed everything when I discovered the painful truth about their intentions. Before I tell you what happened that Tuesday afternoon, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button if you've ever had to stand up for yourself when family let you down. After I retired 5 years ago, life settled into a comfortable routine. I spent my days tending to my garden, joining book clubs, and enjoying the peace of my beautiful home filled with 3 decades of memories. The house had been my sanctuary, especially after my husband Thomas passed away from heart failure. We'd been married for 35 years, and losing him left a hole in my heart that nothing could fill. In those first months after Thomas died, Amanda and Richard started visiting more frequently. Amanda is our only child now, 42, and she has 2 wonderful children, Michael and Sophia, 10 and 8 years old. Initially, I was touched by their increased attention. Sunday dinners became a tradition, and I looked forward to seeing my grandchildren every week. Amanda would bring the kids over, and we'd bake cookies or play board games. Richard would discuss current events with me or help with small repairs around the house. They seemed genuinely concerned about my well-being. "Mom, you know we worry about you being alone in this big house," Amanda said one Sunday, about a year after Thomas passed. "I'm perfectly fine, dear," I assured her. "This place keeps me busy and I have my friends in the neighborhood." "Still, we should think about the future," she insisted. "Have you considered adding me to the deed just for legal protection? Dad always handled those things, and it would give us all peace of mind." Her suggestion seemed reasonable at the time. Thomas had indeed managed our finances and legal affairs throughout our marriage. After discussing it with my friend Julia, who thought it couldn't hurt, I agreed. We visited a notary together, and I added Amanda to the deed, never imagining this decision would later become so important. Richard worked as a financial advisor at a local firm, and they lived in a smaller house across town. They appeared to have the perfect life, successful careers, beautiful children, and financial stability. At least that's what I believed. Looking back, there were small red flags I dismissed. Amanda began asking about my insurance policies, wanting to know details about beneficiaries and coverage amounts. Richard offered to help manage my investments, suggesting options that would have tied up my savings for years. At the time, I attributed their interest to genuine concern. "Your retirement account could be performing better," Richard told me over dinner one night. "I could move some things around, get you better returns." "That's kind, but I'm comfortable with what Thomas set up," I replied. "It's not much, but it's secure." A slight frown crossed his face before he smiled again. "Just trying to help Elsie. You know we want the best for you." 6 months ago, I had a health scare that worried everyone. A mild stroke sent me to the hospital for 3 days. It wasn't serious, and I recovered quickly, but Amanda and Richard's behavior subtly shifted afterward. "Mom, you scared us," Amanda said during one of her visits after my discharge. "Richard and I think we should be more involved with your finances and healthcare decisions. We just want to make sure everything's taken care of," Richard added. "No one expects these things to happen." They suggested checking in more frequently, having duplicate copies of my medical information, and access to my bank accounts in case of emergency. I allowed some of these changes, wanting to ease their worries and appreciating their care. Amanda started calling every day, and Richard dropped by randomly to check on things. At the time, I felt grateful to have family who cared so much, but gradually I began to notice how these helpful gestures came with increased control over my life. They questioned my small purchases, suggested I didn't need to drive anymore, and hinted that maintaining my garden was too much work at my age. Still, I never suspected what was truly happening beneath the surface of their concern. It was a typical Tuesday in May when everything changed. The morning had been pleasant with clear skies and a gentle breeze coming through my kitchen window as I worked on a crossword puzzle. Around 2 in the afternoon, Amanda called for our daily check-in. "Hi, Mom," she said cheerfully. "How are you feeling today?" "I'm well, dear. Just finished watering the roses and having some tea." We chatted about ordinary things for about 15 minutes. She mentioned that Sophia had won a spelling bee at school, and Michael was excited about his upcoming baseball game. I told her about the new book my club was reading. Nothing seemed unusual about the conversation. "Richard and I are planning a trip to Japan next month," she mentioned toward the end of our call. "It's our 15th anniversary and we've always wanted to go." "That sounds wonderful. You two deserve some time away," I replied, genuinely happy for them. "We'll talk more about it when we come for dinner on Sunday," she said. "Love you, Mom." "Love you too, sweetheart." I thought she had hung up. I set my phone down on the counter and went to refill my teacup. That's when I heard voices coming from my phone. Amanda had apparently failed to properly end the call. "Mom sounds tired today," I heard Amanda say, her voice slightly distant. "Did you ask her about the paperwork?" Richard's voice came through clearly. "Not yet. After the Japan trip. We need to move faster. He has to go to a nursing home." I froze teacup halfway to my lips. Who was he? Thomas had passed years ago, and there was no other he in my life. Amanda's response clarified everything. "I know. The realtor says we could get $5 million for the house." "Think about it." Richard continued, excitement evident in his voice. "Our debt's gone new start. The nursing home on Maple has good reviews, and the basic rooms are affordable." "She'll adjust," Amanda said. "Lots of people her age are happier in those places. Less to worry about." My hands began to shake so badly that I had to set down my teacup before I dropped it. My heart pounded in my chest as the reality of what I was hearing sank in. They were talking about me. They planned to move me to a nursing home and sell my house. I heard rustling on the other end, then Amanda's voice again, now sounding alarmed. "Oh God, is the call still—" The line went dead. I sank into my kitchen chair, stunned. The phone fell from my trembling fingers onto the table. My own daughter and her husband were plotting behind my back to put me away and take my home. The home where I raised her, the home that contained every precious memory of my life with Thomas. That night was one of the longest of my life. I alternated between sobbing into my pillow and staring blankly at the ceiling. How could Amanda do this to me? I'd always believed we had a close relationship. I'd supported her through college, celebrated her successes, helped with my grandchildren. Was I really such a burden now that she'd schemed to put me away? I considered confronting her immediately, imagining the satisfaction of letting her know I'd heard everything. But some instinct held me back. If I revealed what I knew too soon, they might find another way to manipulate me. No, I needed to understand exactly what was happening before I acted. The next morning, with reddened eyes but a determined spirit, I began investigating. I pulled out all my financial documents from Thomas's old office desk. Everything looked in order at first glance, but when I checked my recent bank statements carefully, I noticed small discrepancies. $200 here, $300 there, withdrawn on days when Amanda had helped me with errands. Not large enough amounts to alarm me immediately, but over months they added up to thousands. In a folder labeled Mom's Care, which Amanda had left in my home office after helping me organize my medical records, I found pamphlets for 3 different nursing homes. One was highlighted with notes in the margins about affordable basic rooms and Medicaid eligible. There were also printouts about selling houses, quickly real estate market analyses for my neighborhood, and a draft power of attorney document that would have given Amanda and Richard complete control over my affairs. The evidence was undeniable. My daughter and son-in-law weren't just concerned family members. They were actively plotting to take everything I had. I felt physically ill, but beneath the shock and heartbreak, a spark of anger ignited. They had underestimated me. They thought I was just a frail old woman they could push aside and rob of her dignity and home. I decided then that I wouldn't confront them with tears and accusations. No, I would get help and respond with something they clearly weren't expecting consequences. The morning after my discovery, I called Julia Franklin, my oldest friend, and a retired attorney who specialized in elder law. We'd been friends since college, and she was one of the few people I trusted completely. "Julia, I need to see you today. It's urgent," I said when she answered. Something in my voice must have alarmed her because she immediately cleared her schedule. "Come over at 11. I'll make lunch." I arrived at her craftsman bungalow with a folder containing everything I'd found. Over homemade soup that I barely touched, I explained what had happened, showing her the evidence I'd gathered and describing the phone conversation I'd overheard. Julia's expression darkened as I spoke. By the time I finished, she was furious. "Those ungrateful, conniving—" she began, then took a deep breath. "Elsie, what they're planning is elder abuse. It's not just morally reprehensible. Parts of it are illegal." "What can I do?" I asked. "Amanda's name is on the deed. Don't they have the right to sell the house?" Julia shook her head. "Let me see those property documents again." She examined the paperwork carefully, then looked up with the first smile I'd seen since arriving. "Elsie, they made a mistake. The way this deed modification was filed, Amanda was added as a co-owner, but with specific limitations. You still maintain exclusive right to sell the property. They can't sell it without your signature." A wave of relief washed over me. "So they can't force me out?" "Not legally, no, but we need to take this seriously. If they're willing to go this far, they might try other tactics." Julia leaned forward. "We need to protect you and your assets immediately." Over the next week, Julia helped me create a comprehensive plan. First, she connected me with Martin Reynolds, a legitimate financial advisor, and another old friend of hers. Martin reviewed my finances and was alarmed by what he found. "There have been numerous small withdrawals from your accounts, all just under the amount that would trigger fraud alerts. And someone, I assume your son-in-law, attempted to access your retirement account twice last month." With Martin's help, I secured my remaining assets. We opened new accounts at different banks, changed all my passwords, and set up two-factor authentication for everything. I transferred most of my money, leaving just enough in the original accounts to avoid alerting Amanda and Richard immediately. Julia also suggested hiring a private investigator to understand what we were dealing with. "If they're this desperate to get your house, there's a reason. We need to know what it is." The PI discovered that Amanda and Richard were in serious financial trouble. Despite Richard's career as a financial advisor, he had made several disastrous investments with their own money. They had maxed out credit cards, taken second and third mortgages on their house, and even borrowed money from predatory lenders. They were nearly $800,000 in debt, with creditors starting to close in. "They're underwater and sinking fast," the PI explained. "Your house is their life raft." This information helped me understand their desperation, but did nothing to ease the pain of their betrayal. My own daughter was willing to cast me aside for money. With Julia's encouragement, I began recording my conversations with Amanda and Richard whenever they visited or called. Washington is a two-party consent state for recording, but Julia advised me that I could legally record in my own home if I placed small signs noting that audio recording was in progress. I put tiny notices on my entryway table and near my phone, which neither Amanda nor Richard ever seemed to notice or question. These recordings proved invaluable. When Richard casually brought up nursing homes during Sunday dinner, suggesting that many people find them quite liberating, I now had evidence of his manipulation. When Amanda mentioned that "the house is really too much for you to manage, Mom," while simultaneously assuring me they'd never want me to leave, I captured her duplicity. Most damning was a conversation I recorded 2 weeks before their planned Japan trip. They had come for dinner, and while Amanda was helping me in the kitchen, Richard stepped outside to take a call. With him gone, Amanda became unusually forthcoming. "Mom, after we get back from Japan, we need to have a serious talk about your future," she said, chopping vegetables beside me. "Oh, what kind of talk?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "Richard and I have been thinking. This house is so big, and after your health scare, we worry about you being alone." She paused, seemingly, choosing her words carefully. "There are some really nice communities where you'd have people around all the time, activities, no maintenance worries." "You mean a nursing home?" I asked directly. "An assisted living community," she corrected quickly. "Much nicer than you'd think. We could visit all the time and you'd be safer." "And what would happen to the house?" She hesitated just a moment too long. "We'd probably need to sell it. For your care, of course." I nodded as if considering this reasonable suggestion, all while my heart broke anew at the confirmation of their plans. Through careful questioning over the following days, I confirmed that Amanda and Richard planned to approach me about the nursing home immediately after returning from their 2-week Japan trip. They had already spoken to a realtor friend about listing the house quickly. They expected to move me out within a month of their return. With this timeline established, Julia and I finalized our counterplan. I now had about 3 weeks to execute it before they returned from Japan with their ultimatum. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Julia asked as we reviewed the final details. "It will change your relationship with Amanda forever." I thought about it seriously, tears welling in my eyes. The relationship I thought we had is already gone. This isn't about revenge, Julia. It's about protecting myself and showing Amanda that her actions have consequences. Maybe someday we can rebuild something honest. Julia squeezed my hand. "Then let's make sure you come out of this with your dignity and security intact." With Julia's connections, I was introduced to Diane Harding, one of San Francisco's top luxury real estate agents. Her specialty was discreet high-end sales that often never hit the public market. "Your Victorian is in one of the most desirable neighborhoods in the city," Diane said during our first meeting in Julia's home. "The historical details alone make it extraordinary, but the views and the lot size. We could move this property very quickly." "How quickly?" I asked. "With your cooperation for private showings and the right price point, we could have offers within days. An all-cash buyer could close in as little as 2 weeks." That was perfect. Amanda and Richard would be in Japan for 2 weeks, giving me exactly the window I needed. Diane suggested an asking price of $4.9 million, which she described as aggressive but not unreasonable. She arranged for professional photographs and created gorgeous marketing materials that highlighted the home's original stained glass hand-carved woodwork and panoramic views of the city. While Amanda and Richard were at work, I allowed Diane to bring serious buyers through the house. The showings were exhausting, but exhilarating. Each potential buyer marveled at the home Thomas and I had lovingly maintained for decades. I found myself sharing stories about the house's history, about raising Amanda there, about the dinner parties and holidays and quiet evenings Thomas and I had enjoyed in those rooms. After just 4 days of showings, we received 3 offers. The highest was from Catherine and James Wu, a tech executive couple who had recently relocated from Seattle. They offered $5.2 million under cash with a quick closing and flexible move-out terms. "They fell in love with the house," Diane told me, "and their finances are rock solid. This is a very clean offer." I accepted it immediately. With Julia's help and an expedited process due to the all-cash nature of the sale, we scheduled closing for the day after Amanda and Richard departed for Japan. While the sale was proceeding, I also needed to find a new home for myself. Julia's daughter Lisa, a real estate agent specializing in retirement communities, helped me tour several options. I quickly fell in love with a charming 2-bedroom cottage in a vibrant senior community in Sausalito, just 30 minutes from my old neighborhood. It was single level with wide doorways, an accessible bathroom, and a manageable garden patio, truly ideal for aging in place comfortably. This community has everything, Lisa explained. There's a clubhouse, pool, garden club, art studio, and the average age is around 70, so you'll have plenty of peers. Plus, there's no medical component unless you choose to add services later. The cottage was listed at $850,000, easily affordable, with my house proceeds. I made an offer that day and arranged for the closings to align. As the legal processes moved forward, I focused on deciding what to take with me. My new home was about half the size of my Victorian, so I needed to be selective. I spent days going through every room, identifying the items that truly mattered to me. Thomas's favorite leather chair, our wedding album, the handmade quilt from my grandmother Amanda's childhood artwork that I'd framed family photographs, and the special toys I kept for my grandchildren's visits. For larger furniture and household items, I arranged for a moving company to pack and store them temporarily. I would decide their fate after settling into my new home. I deliberately left enough furniture behind beds, the dining table, kitchen supplies, the living room sofa, to maintain the appearance that I still lived there until Amanda and Richard returned. The most important preparation was installing small, unobtrusive security cameras in the main room of the Victorian. Julia's son worked in home security and helped me set up a system I could monitor remotely. "You'll be able to see their reaction in real time from your new place," he assured me. On my last night in my beloved Victorian, I wrote a letter to Amanda and Richard. I revised it several times, working to strike the right tone, firm, but not vindictive. Finally satisfied, I sealed it in an envelope and left it prominently on the kitchen counter, where they would be sure to find it. The next morning, as Amanda and Richard's flight took off for Tokyo, a moving van arrived at my home. Within hours, all my chosen belongings were packed and on their way to either storage or my new cottage. I took one final walk through each room, saying goodbye to the house that had sheltered so many memories. "Thank you for everything," I whispered as I closed the front door behind me for the last time. By sunset, I was sitting on my new patio with a glass of wine looking out at the golden hills of Meran County, feeling both grief and liberation in equal measure. The 2 weeks of Amanda and Richard's vacation passed quickly as I settled into my new home. I introduced myself to neighbors, joined the garden club, and began arranging my belongings in ways that made the cottage feel like mine. I kept my phone off most of the time, allowing myself this period of peace before the inevitable confrontation. The day of their scheduled return, I sat in my comfortable new living room with my tablet, the security camera app open and waiting. Julia had come over for moral support, bringing lunch and offering her steady presence during what we both knew would be a difficult moment. "Are you ready for this?" she asked gently. "As ready as I'll ever be," I replied, my stomach knotting with anticipation. According to their itinerary, which Amanda had shared with me before leaving, they were due to arrive home from the airport around 3 in the afternoon. At 10 minutes past 3, the security cameras captured their car pulling into the driveway. They looked relaxed and happy, laughing as they retrieved luggage from the trunk. Richard carried what appeared to be shopping bags filled with souvenirs. Amanda was wearing a new scarf that she must have purchased in Japan. They approached the front door completely unaware that their lives were about to change dramatically. Amanda unlocked the door with her key, which still worked. I had deliberately not changed the locks, wanting them to enter normally and discover the truth in their own time. "That's odd," I heard Amanda say as they stepped inside. "Mom, we're back." The cameras captured their progression through the house. At first they simply called out for me, assuming I was in another room, or perhaps napping. As they moved deeper into the house, their expressions began to change. "Something's different," Richard said, looking around the living room with a furrowed brow. "Did she rearrange things?" Amanda walked into the kitchen, setting down her purse on the counter right next to my letter. "Mom!" She called again before her eyes fell on the envelope with her and Richard's names written on it. "Richard," she called, her voice now tinged with concern. "Come here." Richard joined her in the kitchen. "What is it?" "A note from Mom." Amanda picked up the envelope, her hand visibly trembling, even on the grainy security footage. Julia squeezed my hand as we watched Amanda open the letter and begin to read aloud. Amanda and Richard. I heard everything on the phone that day. I know about your plans for me and for this house. You were right about one thing: this house is worth about $5 million. It sold last week. As it turns out, I had the legal right to sell it without your permission. By now, I've moved to my new home. Don't bother looking for me. I'll contact you when I'm ready. The furniture is yours to keep or sell. Love, Mom. The color drained from Amanda's face. Richard grabbed the letter from her hands, reading it himself, as if he couldn't believe what he'd heard. "This has to be a joke," he said, voice rising. "She can't just sell the house. Your name is on the deed." Amanda was shaking her head slowly, shock evident in every line of her body. "She heard us, on the phone. Remember when I thought I hadn't hung up properly? She heard everything." Richard's expression transformed from disbelief to rage. He slammed his fist on the counter. "She can't do this. We'll fight it legally. She had no right." Amanda slumped into a kitchen chair, tears streaming down her face. "The house is gone, Richard. If Mom says she sold it legally, then she did. She wouldn't lie about that." Call her right now," Richard demanded. Amanda pulled out her phone with shaking hands and dialed my number. On my end, the phone went straight to voicemail, as I had expected. I'd turned it off for precisely this purpose. "She's not answering," Amanda said, her voice small and defeated. Richard paced the kitchen, running his hands through his hair in agitation. "This can't be happening. We needed that money. We're going to lose everything." Their attention was diverted by the sound of the front door opening again. The cameras showed a well-dressed couple entering the foyer, Catherine and James Wu, the new owners, arriving exactly as planned. "Hello," Catherine called out. "Ms. Pearson, the agent said you might still be here moving out." Amanda and Richard froze, staring at each other in horror before moving to the hallway to confront the newcomers. "Who are you?" Richard demanded. "What are you doing in our house?" James looked confused. "Your house? We closed on this property last week. We're the new owners." "That's impossible," Richard insisted. "There must be some mistake." Catherine shook her head. "No mistake. We have all the paperwork. Elsie Pearson sold us this house. The agent said she mentioned some family might still be moving items out and that we should give them until the end of the week." She paused, studying their shocked expressions. "You must be the daughter and son-in-law." Amanda nodded mutely, tears still streaming down her face. Catherine's expression softened slightly. "We understand this might be difficult. Your mother left some documents for you on the dining room table. Legal confirmations of the sale, I believe." The cameras followed as Amanda and Richard moved to the dining room in a daze. There, just as Catherine had said, was a folder containing copies of all the sale documents, along with a letter from Julia on her legal letterhead, confirming that the sale was legitimate and binding. Richard snatched up the papers, scanning them frantically, his face contorted with rage as he realized they were authentic. "This can't be legal. We'll sue. It's over, Richard," Amanda interrupted, her voice hollow. "We have nothing to stand on. Mom outsmarted us." Richard stormed out of the dining room, and the camera caught him punching the wall in the hallway, leaving a dent in the plaster. Amanda remained seated, shoulders slumped in defeat, occasionally wiping tears from her face. Catherine and James stood awkwardly in the doorway, clearly uncomfortable with the family drama unfolding before them. "We can come back tomorrow if that would be better," James offered kindly. Amanda looked up, composing herself slightly. "No, it's your house. We'll be out by the end of the week. I'm sorry you had to witness this." After a few more awkward exchanges, the new owners left, promising to return in a few days, once Amanda and Richard had time to process everything. When they were alone again, Amanda called out to Richard, who had moved to the living room. "What are we going to do now?" Richard's response was cold. "Your mother destroyed us. We're finished." I couldn't bear to watch anymore. I closed the tablet and looked at Julia, my own cheeks wet with tears. "I didn't expect to feel this sad," I admitted. "Part of me thought I'd feel triumphant, but I just feel hollow." Julia put her arm around me. "You protected yourself from people who were planning to harm you. It's okay to feel sad about that. She's still your daughter." I nodded, unable to speak through the lump in my throat. I had won this battle, but the war had cost me more than I ever wanted to lose. A month passed before I had any direct contact with Amanda. During that time, I settled into my new life at Bayside Gardens, the senior community in Sausalito. My cottage quickly became a comfortable home with stunning views of the bay and Mount Tamalpais from my back patio. I made several new friends, particularly Grace Wilson, a retired literature professor who shared my love of classic novels, and Henry Carter, a widower who ran the community garden club. I joined an art class I'd always wanted to try, discovering a modest talent for watercolors. Twice a week, I volunteered at a nearby elementary school, helping children with reading difficulties work that brought me genuine joy. Physically removed from the scene of betrayal, I found myself healing faster than expected. Julia kept me updated on the aftermath. Amanda and Richard had moved most of the remaining furniture out of the Victorian within days. The new owners had been patient but firm about the timeline. According to Julia's sources, Amanda and Richard had listed their own house for sale, presumably to help address their massive debt. I changed my phone number, but gave the new one to Julia and a few other trusted friends. I also sent a brief email to Amanda, providing just my email address as a way to contact me, explaining that I needed space but didn't want to cut her off completely. 3 weeks after they discovered the house sale, Amanda emailed asking if we could meet. After discussing it with Julia, I agreed to coffee at a neutral location, a cafe, halfway between our homes. The morning of our meeting, I arrived early, claiming a quiet corner table and ordering herbal tea to calm my nerves. When Amanda walked in, I barely recognized her. She had lost weight and dark circles shadowed her eyes. Her typically polished appearance was replaced by a simple ponytail and minimal makeup. "Mom," she said softly as she approached the table. I gestured to the chair across from me. "Amanda." She sat down, hands fidgeting with her purse strap. "Thank you for agreeing to see me. Would you like something to drink?" I offered, maintaining my composure despite the storm of emotions inside me. She ordered coffee, and we sat in uncomfortable silence until it arrived. Finally, she spoke. "I don't know where to begin," she said, voice trembling. "What we did, what we planned to do, was unforgivable." "Yes," I agreed simply. "It was." Tears filled her eyes. We were in so much trouble financially. Richard made some terrible investments, and then he tried to fix it with even riskier ones. We remortgaged our house twice. We were drowning in debt with creditors threatening legal action. She paused, wiping her eyes. "But that's no excuse. None at all." "Why didn't you just ask me for help?" I asked the question that had haunted me for weeks. She looked down, shame evident in every line of her body. "Richard said you'd never give us that much money willingly. He said the only way was to get control of your assets completely." She looked up, eyes pleading. "I knew it was wrong. I hated the idea, but I was scared of losing everything, and he kept insisting it was the only way." "So you decided to throw me away," I said quietly. "Put me in a nursing home and take my house." Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "It sounds so horrible when you say it out loud. And it is horrible. I don't know how I let myself be convinced it was okay. I've been asking myself that every day since we came back from Japan. Where do things stand now? I asked. We've sold our house. It wasn't enough to cover everything, but we negotiated settlements with most of the creditors. We're renting a small apartment now. She hesitated. Richard and we're separating. This situation brought out things in him I can't accept. The way he reacted when we found out about the house sale, his rage, his blaming everyone but himself. I realized I don't really know who he is anymore. I felt a complex mix of emotions at this news. Sadness for my daughter's pain, a flicker of satisfaction that Richard was facing consequences, concern for my grandchildren. What about Michael and Sophia? I asked. They're okay. Confused about all the changes, but adjusting. They miss you. She looked at me hopefully. They ask about you all the time. The thought of my grandchildren brought a lump to my throat. I miss them too. Mom, Amanda said, reaching across the table, but stopping short of touching my hand when I tensed. I know I have no right to ask for forgiveness. What I did, what I agreed to do, was a betrayal of everything you've ever done for me. But I want you to know how deeply sorry I am. I will regret it for the rest of my life. I studied my daughter's face, seeing genuine remorse in her eyes. The anger I'd been nursing gave way to profound sadness. I raised you better than this, Amanda. I never taught you to use people or throw them away when they become inconvenient. You didn't, she agreed, voice breaking. That's not who I want to be. I lost myself somewhere along the way, but I'm trying to find my way back. We talked for nearly 2 hours. I let her explain everything from the beginning of their financial troubles to the desperate plan they'd concocted. She held nothing back, admitting to the small withdrawals from my accounts, the research into nursing homes, the consultations with realtors about selling my house quickly. I shared how it felt to discover their betrayal, the pain and fear I'd experienced, and how I'd found the strength to protect myself. I told her about my new home and the life I was building there. By the end of our conversation, we'd reached a tentative understanding. I wasn't ready to fully forgive, but I was willing to keep the door open to rebuilding our relationship with clear boundaries. I'd like to see the grandchildren, I said as we prepared to leave, but I'm not ready to see Richard. Amanda nodded. I understand. Maybe I could bring them to visit your new place next weekend. That would be good. But Amanda, I added firmly, this will take time. Trust isn't rebuilt overnight. I know, she said softly. And I'll wait as long as it takes. I just don't want to lose you, Mom. As we parted ways outside the cafe, she hesitated, then asked, Are you happy in your new home? I considered the question carefully. I'm finding my way there. It wasn't the retirement I planned, but it's one I can shape on my own terms. In the weeks that followed, I established a new relationship with my grandchildren. I explained my move in terms they could understand. Grandma wanted a smaller place with a swimming pool and friends nearby without burdening them with adult conflicts. They adjusted quickly, as children often do, excited by the playground and duck pond at Bayside Gardens. I also set up a proper education trust for them with part of the house proceeds, ensuring that regardless of their parents' financial situation, Michael and Sophia would have opportunities for college and beyond. Julia helped me structure it so that neither Amanda nor Richard could access the funds for any other purpose. My relationship with Amanda remained fragile but healing. With Richard, I maintained a distant cordiality when we occasionally crossed paths at the children's events. He never apologized directly, but Amanda told me he had acknowledged his role in their failed plan when they decided to separate. I learned that they had indeed lost nearly everything financially, but were slowly rebuilding separate lives. Amanda had returned to her former career in graphic design, and Richard had taken a position at a different financial firm, though at a much lower level than before. As for me, I found unexpected freedom in my new circumstances. Without the burden of maintaining a large home, I had time to explore interests I'd put aside for years. I joined a travel group for seniors and took weekend trips to places I'd always wanted to see. I made new friends who knew nothing of my past and accepted me simply as I was in the present. Sometimes, especially on quiet evenings, I still felt the ache of betrayal. But increasingly, those moments were balanced by gratitude for the wisdom and strength I'd found in adversity. 6 months after moving to Bayside Gardens, I hosted a small dinner party on my patio to celebrate my 68th birthday. Julia was there along with my new friends, Grace and Henry from the community, and Amanda came with the children. The evening was pleasant, filled with good food and genuine laughter, something I hadn't been sure I'd experience again after everything that had happened. As the sun set over the bay, casting golden light across the water, Grace raised her glass in a toast. To Elsie, who shows us all that it's never too late for a new beginning. The simple words brought unexpected tears to my eyes. I had indeed found a new beginning, one I never would have chosen, but had come to value deeply. In the months since moving, I had become something of an unexpected resource for other seniors in similar situations. Through Julia's connections, I occasionally spoke to groups about recognizing signs of elder exploitation and the importance of maintaining financial independence. My story, shared without unnecessary details, but with honest emotion, resonated with many. You know, when I first moved here, I felt like I'd lost everything. I told my birthday guests as we enjoyed dessert under the stars. My home, my illusions about my family, my sense of security. But now, I realize I've gained something equally valuable: clarity about what truly matters, and the courage to protect it. Amanda, who had been quieter than usual that evening, reached across the table to squeeze my hand. "I'm still learning from you, Mom. Always have been." Our relationship had improved gradually over the past few months. We still had difficult moments when memories of betrayal surfaced, but we were finding a new foundation based on honesty rather than illusion. Amanda had filed for divorce from Richard, a process that was proceeding amicably for the sake of the children. She had moved into a modest townhouse closer to my new home and was rebuilding her graphic design business. Richard and I maintained minimal contact. He sent a birthday card with a brief note acknowledging his terrible judgment, but made no further attempts to repair our relationship. I accepted this arrangement as probably the best outcome possible under the circumstances. My grandchildren had adjusted completely to the new situation, enjoying both their mother's townhouse and their weekly visits to my cottage, where they now had their own special drawer filled with games and art supplies. Michael had joined the community swim team that welcomed family members, and Sophia loved helping me tend my small garden patio. As my birthday evening wound down and guests departed, I found myself sitting alone with Julia, reminiscing about the journey of the past year. "I never expected to be starting over at 68, I admitted. "But there's something liberating about it, too. Everything I have now is truly mine on my own terms." Julia smiled. "You've always been stronger than you knew, Elsie, and wiser, too." "Not wise enough to see what was happening with Amanda and Richard," I said ruefully. "We trust the people we love. That's not foolishness. It's humanity." Julia patted my hand. "The wisdom came in how you responded once you knew the truth." I thought about her words long after she left. Yes, I had trusted too easily and perhaps missed signs I should have seen. But when the moment of crisis came, I had found resources within myself I never knew existed: courage, resolve, and the will to create a new life rather than be victimized. The lessons I'd learned were hard, but valuable. Trust must be maintained, not assumed. Even with family, healthy boundaries are essential. Being kind doesn't mean being a doormat. Standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. Sometimes love means setting firm boundaries. Real love doesn't exploit vulnerability. It respects independence. It's never too late to start a new chapter. Age doesn't diminish your right to self-determination. True family supports your independence, not takes advantage of it. Blood ties are meaningful only when matched with respect. As I prepared for bed that night, I paused at my bedroom window, looking out at the lights, reflecting on the bay waters. The past year had brought pain I never expected, and resilience I never knew I possessed. I had lost a home filled with memories, but gained a life filled with authenticity. My story wasn't over, far from it. This new chapter was still being written one day at a time, with wisdom earned through tears and triumph. Whatever came next, I would face it on my own terms, never again allowing anyone to determine my worth or my future. Have you ever had to stand up to family members who betrayed your trust? How did you find the strength to protect yourself while dealing with the heartbreak? Share your experiences in the comments below. And if my story resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. It helps others find these stories of resilience and renewal. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember that it's never too late to reclaim your power and write a new chapter in your life.